Hi, everyone. I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am in London, and this is Christmas, or supposed to be, but actually they're locking down London slowly but surely, more and more and more. So actually, contrary to the latest article that was in one of the newspapers showing a heavy snowstorm in London, we have sunny day today. It was actually beautiful, and then it got kind of cloudy and had maybe a bit of rain, just sprinkles. So it's nothing like what they say. They're always exaggerating on the news. That doesn't mean we won't have snow in the next few days, or maybe even tonight, I suppose. But at the moment, we have a very lovely, actually sunny and relatively warm December. It's actually not that cold here, and I'm a Californian, so I can assure you I would be telling you if it was freezing cold. So what I want to do is talk about what's going on in general, and I hope I can do this in such a way that it doesn't get banned from YouTube, et cetera, but I will probably make it sort of hidden rather quickly after this goes out. So it'll go up, and then I will maybe have to deal with it. So if it goes onto my alternative channel, that may be the more likely place, because I have to avoid any more strikes on my main channel. And that's a whole thing about censorship on YouTube, which I've explained many times. I'm not going to bore you by going into that again. Recently, I just got allowed back into my main YouTube channel. So that allows me to upload videos there and do even live shows. But I already have 2 strikes. So if I do one thing wrong, my whole channel will disappear. So that's where we're at. Now, I've got this report that was leaked. All right. And apparently, and I have validation, in fact, and one of the people validating the fact that it was leaked is Simon Parks actually, and he did his own update about this, I think, earlier today. So I got the report very early yesterday, I think it was. The days are just, moving into each other, and I've got it here on my blog. So if you go to my website, and I'm just going to look at the date so I can figure, so it was yesterday. So this report came out. I got it very early in the morning, and then later in the evening, I got a message from Simon saying this report had been leaked from the Trump team. When I got it, I didn't have a source. It does say the Trump Facebook team or something like that, but I don't even know if there is such a thing. I don't know if that was a joke or what's going on there, but it's quite a good, I posted on my website, and I made a nice, pretty page, and I did all of this without any validation. So I just intuitively woke up in the morning, got this report from a source, and then made this page and actually sent it out and on Facebook and all. And then I got banned from Facebook. So that happened all at once. And so now I'm banned from Facebook for 6 days, I guess it is. But I want to share this report with you and kind of go over it, because just in general, I'm going to talk about various things because I think it'll be maybe helpful for people that are following all of this. And I know there's lots of good people out there trying to tell you what's really happening. There's a couple people that I have been liking their videos, and then you can go to my liked videos on my main channel and see what those are lately. So it's always good to know what I'm sort of pointing out that's good and that I'm liking. Now, the page that I made for everyone about this is called, actually I named it related to the text in the report itself, saying the plan, and then I called it America the Constitutional Republic, because that's where we're headed. And of course, I gave it the American flag, and I actually made a nice little picture from Q, Anon. Maybe you can kind of see this. And let me get this thing out of the way. So that you can see that there, and it's got the American flag. And underneath it, it says, it's a quote from Q saying, "Nothing can stop what is coming, nothing, Q." So, and that is a fairly recent post from Q. And I just grabbed that as the image. So I've been sending that around. As I say, as a result, I don't know if it was that got me banned. It might have been, because that's the last post I made before they banned me. So on Facebook, I'm banned for 6 days. So you won't see me post. You know, I post every day on Facebook. For those of you that don't follow me or don't know that, I do. And sometimes, you know, I post a lot of stuff that other people are putting out that I think is worthy of notice, you know, and sometimes I make comments about it. Sometimes I post, of course, I post my own stuff. I'm releasing something. But obviously I've been flying flew in here on Friday, and then I've supposedly been on lockdown, depending on what you want to believe about that. And you are on your own recognizance to supposedly be so scared of getting COVID that you comply with their requirements, no matter what happens. And so that's not actually my point of view, as everyone knows, but I'm not going to go into that in the hopes that I can keep this video, you know, viewable. So I did have this experience where Jean-Claude, this individual from Montreal who does his own channel, forget what he calls it, but he's interviewed me a number of times, and he had me on his show, and then after that, his whole channel was deleted, including the video he did with me. So that was a really, I thought, an important interview that he did with me, because I was really drilling down on some important stuff, but it was extremely controversial. And he said he had already gotten some warnings, but he didn't get what you normally get, which is 1 strike, 2 strikes, warnings, and then you get deleted. He just got a couple warnings, and then he did a show with me, and then boom, everything's gone. So he didn't seem to be backing up everything on his channel. He said he had some backup, but for some reason he didn't back up our interview with that night. So very unfortunately, because again, it would have had a lot of good stuff. So I'm going to try to reconstitute some of that here. No guarantees. Working with a kind of a weird setup here. It's not my normal setup, so you know, it's a little more logistically problematic, let's put it that way. I'm using my iPad over here to refer to stuff, because I can't actually touch the screen over here without jiggling it. And so anyway, this is just logistics and weird stuff going on. So I was also interviewed very recently by Sacha Stone, and I'm fingers crossed on that he's going to release that interview any day now. So that was just a couple of days ago, and that again was, I think, a really good interview. He did a great job with his questions, and we had sort of a great back and forth and dialogue about a lot of things. And I think people will find that quite fascinating. Sacha Stone is out on the circuit, speaking up quite substantially now, and I applaud that. I know he got a hit piece done back in May by Veterans Today. Now, Veterans Today supposedly didn't write it. It was some, you know, guest writer or whoever it was. I don't remember the person's name. And you can delve into that more if you just do a search, I guess. But it basically is accusing him of a lot of horrible stuff and stupid stuff and so on. So I don't buy into that. I go with my intuition. Sacha is obviously on a good path, revealing excellent information. Hi, I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I'm very pleased today to have Simon Parks with me. And Simon has his own Connecting Consciousness website and endeavor. And Simon and I've interviewed Simon a number of times on my channel, as many people will know. It's really lovely to have him here. We're both in England, so we're in the same time zone for a change, which is, that's a big plus, I believe me. And it happens to be a relatively reasonable hour in the evening in sort of the fourth tier lockdown for me in London, which, I kind of jumped from the frying pan into the fire. We were being locked down in California. I thought I'd come to London because you were just opening up and restaurants were open and everything was looking very good for Christmas, and visit my partner, obviously, and other friends and family here. And then, of course, all this crazy lockdown stuff happened all over again, and they just don't seem to want to stop. So that's where we're at. Now, Simon, you did an update on this sort of, I guess it was a leak from the Trump team, and I got this information early on the morning of the 18th, and I just happened to be awake, really very early, and it was sent to me in two posts actually, and I sent a message to the person who sent it to me saying, where did you get this? Because it sounded actually real. And most of the stuff I get, is really all over the map. I have to determine whether or not it's complete bullocks or whether it has some validity to it. And there was the ring of truth in here. So, and I had just been having a dialogue with actually Robert David Steele over email and a few others about some of these things. So it seemed to be fitting into the scenario in a certain way. So I actually did something I never do, which I went and got an American flag, and I made a post, and I made it all nice, and I posted both things that I'd gotten on there, and I also got a short saying from Q, and all of that is on my website, and you can take a look at it. And I'm going to be referring to that. We're going to be referring to that. So as we talk, or as Simon talks, I'll also bring that up on the screen so you can actually see what was said there, because I think it's important. And I know that there's a lot of confusion out there. And I also know, and I thought it was wonderful, Simon, that you clarified today in your report, the second part of your report, that there are some people putting out information that's just plain wrong. And why they do that, they're maybe just bad, discernment, or maybe other motives. I'm not sure, but that is happening. I also want to say that I'm sorry, your cat was distracting me. I just love cats, and I don't have, my cat's not with me anymore, so you have Norwegian forest cats, so I just had to. Anyway, so what happens is that there are certain people that have been, I don't know, they've chosen themselves, or they've come up through the morass of voices out there. There's a huge alternative community, and some are better than others. Some are sometimes right and sometimes wrong. That's easy to do. Or some are actually, I think, misleading things. So I've kind of talked in general on my updates, bits and pieces, without trying to target people. It's difficult to kind of criticize at the same time and make a red flag over something when, you need, it's important when we have knowledge to want to share it to help widen the playing field and hopefully clarify things. So with all of that in mind, let's proceed. So Simon, that's my background on what I got, right? And then later in the evening, I actually got an email from you saying that there had been a leak and that you actually sent me exactly what I had. So what I had made the rounds, I guess, and you had as well been alerted to it, and probably even before that. But I'm not even sure, but I think that the source that sent it to you actually picked up a little piece of what I had posted, strangely. So maybe it was just convenient because I'm a well-known personality and I happen to have the biggest, most obvious copy of it. You know how that goes. So what do you have to say? Let's talk about it. Also, the fact that you felt that it was unfortunate came out. Let's tell people about that because my audience might not have heard your update.
Well, first of all, it's lovely that you're here in Britain, and as you know that American citizens are allowed to fly into the UK at the moment, but British citizens are not allowed to fly to the US. So that's quite an interesting one.
It's been very strange. Let me say about that, though, there was a news item recently, very recently, saying that Trump was rethinking that very recently and that he might be allowing Europeans, and that includes Brits, to come in. But that's all I've heard of it. I don't know if he's moved on it, and it seems maybe he hasn't. So,
what I understand is going to happen is that if you're a tourist, you will not be allowed in. But if you have some work related reason to be in the US, you will be allowed in.
Okay, well, I kind of thought that was always the case, but it, you know, that when it's work related, because my partner can prove, because he works with me, that it's work related.
Yeah.
So if we can get there, what I really want to do, I'll just tell people in general, I know it's crazy, but, you know, I was planning to go to Malta or Portugal because those were the most possible open countries. Portugal wants their tourism to come back, and yet right now, because of this whole craziness with the lockdown in London, I was going to use my good Samaritan badge or whatever you want to call it for being in lockdown here for 10 days and then released by the British authorities as if you want to term it, on my own reconnaissance, right? But then I was going to use that as a ticket to get into Portugal, but I'm afraid that might not work now that London is got plastered all over the world that we're under a tier 4, which is, God knows what that even is. So we would like to spend New Year's in Sedona. So, but if my partner is not allowed in, that's not going to be doable either.
Sure.
Because Arizona has actually been pretty, you know, lenient and pretty cool as far as lockdowns go. California has been a nightmare and a half, as you may know.
Yes, indeed. So what was the bit we were talking about before?
Okay, so what we're talking about is the fact that I don't know when you got your information from your sources, and that you're getting a tremendous amount of information. I totally respect that. I don't have a direct line into the Trump team that I know of. I do get a lot of source information, but I know that you do, and you're aware of it. I know there are a lot of people out there, not a lot, but there are certain people out there saying they also have that. However, they don't seem to give a very cognizant or clear sort of rundown of when they get information. It's sort of couched in a lot of BS and feel good nonsense, I think. So
I think Kerry, that a lot of people get headlines, but they don't actually get the information that goes with it. So they can talk about a headline, but then when you ask them to give in-depth information, they are not able to do that. That's, I think, the difference.
Okay, so at any rate, wanting to just sort of give you kudos in that way. So do you want to talk about the leak, how it happened, and at least what you know about it, and then we'll get into the leak itself.
Well, I don't know how the leak occurred. What I know is that let's just call it the top team. There are what we would call briefing documents that are done for the top team, and the top team will go through those briefing documents, and the documents generally work in either chronological order or an order at which actions are expected to unfold. This is not a document that looks at response. So it's simply, this is the plan, not the second document, which will be, if the other side does this, what do we do? So we're not talking about that document, we're talking about the briefing document for the plan. Now that top tier then provide that briefing document to their assistants or those on a need to know basis. That second or third tier group then are authorized to pass to certain individuals with differing embargoes upon that. All I know is that someone from the Trump team who was so under pressure from people around them demanding that Trump do something, that the bad guys were winning, that it was all one-way traffic. And so this individual felt that they had to give this information because it would be a feel-good factor. The difficulty here is that some of that information has yet to happen. It's quite okay to release information when the bullet has left the gun because it is too late for the other side to respond. It is not good to give that information when we're talking possibly weeks away. So I don't know who or what, and I'm not interested in that, but what I know is that that information, I got that briefing document, and the briefing document, and that's almost word for word. There are some differences in there, but it's word for word. There was a lot of what I would call sensitive material, which is not on the briefing document that was leaked. And the message I got with that was, and I'll quote, this is embargoed. It is not right to release this yet, but you are authorized to speak in generic terms. That's exactly the wording I got with it. So I couldn't do anything more than generalize and, as they said, generic terms. So it was a hell of a shock when this started to do the rounds. But the cat's out of the bag, so we might as well go with it. And, you know, that's what I did. And I did another podcast today about, I don't know, 4 o'clock or something British time. And then I spoke in more detail to the information that I had received.
Right. And of course, everyone listening to this can also go hear your other updates, and obviously, so you don't have to repeat everything here. That's not.
No, but I'm happy to talk it through because, as you said, when two knowledgeable people have a discussion, then more understandable info can be got out.
Yes, I thought that, there's enough going on. It's a deep enough subject. There's a lot of moving parts to what was said. And I think there may be even areas where I have questions that the audience may have as well. So I thought it might be, I was going to do this by myself. It's actually kind of a miracle that I reached you to get you on the show here. And I'm very happy about that. So, because I know you've been just so busy lately, and I've been just jet lagged and all this craziness stuff. All right, so we've got the document itself. So I was just going to go through one thing after the other. So I hope you'll bear with me as we do that.
Sure.
I'm going to bring the document on the screen here. I think this should work. Fingers crossed. And if it doesn't, we'll just get away with it. So. Okay, so at the moment, let me zoom out a tiny bit and see if that helps. So it's here. Again, I had posted it on the 18th. Nothing can stop what is coming, nothing. I made a nice little American flag with the Q saying, because I thought it was apropos. I also gave it the title, The Plan, America, the Constitutional Republic, because that is the summation of everything that was said in the in these releases, and there were actually two sent to me. So I've got the first one, which is a bit more general, but it still has a few things that we could touch on, I thought. So the first is general. Barr's last day is Wednesday, the 23rd of December, this says. And they also say that the next day, Thursday, is known as Thor's Day. And that we're hearing, and I think, I'm not sure if you said this in your update or not, but we are hearing that Trump is going to make the 24th a holiday so that everyone will be able to also not be at work. And then he's going to do his speech. Now, I thought he was going to do a speech on that day. This part of the release, which is before the actual release, and this could have been written by anybody. Again, I don't know the author. Said that he was going to then do his main talk on Christmas Day. So, any thoughts on that?
Well, what you've got is not the original briefing document. What you've got is somebody drawing from the briefing document and then adding their own spin or their own take on it. So this is not the document that was presented to the top group, but this is somebody who's seen that document and then has added it. So for instance, what does not appear on the original briefing document is the words, "Remember Melania Trump's tweet of a Christmas card with Santa." So that's all been added by somebody else. That does not appear on the card. What does appear on the briefing document, which does not appear on this document, is that Barr, of course, will not be a member of the government when he retires, let's call it retires, and he is going to be called as a witness for the Constitution. So he cannot be called as a witness while he's employed, but he will be called as a witness to testify for the good guys, and he needs to not be in government to do that. So that appeared on the original briefing document, which doesn't appear here.
Okay, very good. And then we get into the DNI report that was set to be released on the 18th. I believe you mentioned this in your update. They're basically saying it's going to be released, I guess, between the 3rd and the 6th. Before or during, they're saying the Congress of Delegation, January 3rd to January 6th. Now, I did hear that from other sources that have been coming in saying that it was delayed, that it was going to, and you said very clearly on your report, I believe, that it was behind the scenes, it could come out at any moment, actually, and that it's been delayed for the public until the 3rd or the 6th. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, the executive summary will be released to those that need to know before Christmas Day, but the full report will not probably be released until the first week in January, because it will be part of legal action.
Okay, excellent. Now, let's see, the new Congress is sworn in on the 3rd, and then they vote on the 6th. And let me just make a side detour here, because I've been listening to a lot of stuff. It's just part of my job to go out there. I don't always enjoy this part, but sometimes it's fun and sometimes it's not, because I have to listen to things that I don't want to hear from people that I don't necessarily respect, because I can't go out and correct the record if I don't know what record is being put out there, so to speak, if you can follow the drift. So what I'm saying here is that I think it was, and I don't think it's a bad thing to say, it's actually, his opinion very clearly stated on his updates, and he's doing a very good job. Mike Adams of Natural News has said that he felt that there, and this gets into the insurrection. So that if Trump did not declare, the insurrection, which I think is down here a bit further, before the 6th of January, it's just his opinion, that would be a mistake. And he believes that because then the people voting won't have the necessary information they need in order to do their vote. Now, you've said a different take on that. You actually said, I think it's you, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that you said that when they vote on January 6th, they're not going to have all of the information. They're going to actually, I guess, prove their treason in essence, that they're going to go along with the lie. Is that correct?
No, I didn't say that. What I said was that that the 6th, I think it will be the 6th and not anywhere earlier than that. That I felt that it was a stopgap measure. That I feel that it probably will be sorted before that date. But it's constitutionally accurate. It follows the letter of the law, and it's just another fallback position if what we want to be sorted is not sorted by the 6th of January. So for me, it's not that important. I think there are other things that are unfolding, but that is a constitutional way of dealing with a problem. And the good guys, or the guys who uphold the Constitution or the Republic, have consistently tried to find a method to bring truth within the Constitution. But unfortunately, because of what is occurring in the courts and occurring in certain governors' offices, the constitutional opportunities are being reduced, not because the good guys want that, but because the bad actors are forcing a certain situation which may require certain actions to save the Republic. So that date, 6th, is much more likely than the 3rd and could happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't required.
Okay, so now let me also, and I'm actually going to go back to us on the screen here because I want to talk about something about this. I am getting a lot of back channel information. I have direct contacts with certain patriots across the United States, and they send me information nonstop, and especially right now. So that keeps me in the loop, but I never know exactly what's really true and what's not true, and so on. So one of the things I get is troop movements around the United States. And of course, there have been articles published about the ships on either coast. So I'm assuming that there is some truth to that. However, I am hearing also about troop movements within the United States, specifically the Patriots moving into place, and possibly also, of course, the military in general. So if you're going to look at Trump, if he were to be looking at this insurrection, which goes back to, and I don't have the right wording, so actually I have to refer back to my article here. It's actually called, it's martial law through the Insurrection Act via Executive Order 13848 as of 9/12/2018. And that imposes certain sanctions in the event of foreign interference in the United States election, which certainly they have evidence of. So with that in mind, we have troop movements in the United States right now, and certain areas are reporting into me. I've heard quite a bit of movement in California. I've also heard in Arizona and of course on the East Coast. And then I was told that the Patriots were going to march on Washington as well. So, so any thing to say about any of that?
Well, I'll preface it by saying it's always normal at this time of year for the United States to deploy or redeploy carrier fleets as part of its ordinary program. However, it is true to say that in this instance, a defensive posture has been set up on, as you've said, not just it's the continental United States. Let's just not just think about the mainland, but the possessions of particular interest, of course, is Taiwan, So there's been a big interest there. But this is not because we're expecting an attack from the United Nations or indeed China. It is to stop certain people escaping from the United States, because certain individuals have their own private airplanes and they have their own private yachts or boats. These are people who don't have access to the most advanced technology, but you know, there could well be an opportunity for people to try to escape. So, you know, I've tried to make it clear to my audience that this is not a defensive posture because the United States is expecting an attack. It is, if a martial law becomes the only option, then the resources are where they need to be. In terms of troop movements, the 82nd Airborne is now on ready standby and will be used. The Patriots can sometimes do more harm than good. Have to be very careful that they don't get caught in a crossfire. They can't afford to lose them. But why it's important is that if you are standing to fight for the Constitution and the Republic, it doesn't work unless the citizens of the United States also show their support for you. So if a military operation takes place and there is no groundswell of support for that, it's not that it doesn't look good globally, it's not right morally within the Constitution. So if you've got 100,000 patriots marching to DC, then you then have the moral backing of the citizens of the United States to take the action. So that's why that's been planned.
Okay, all right, very good. That's quite interesting. And more updates coming on along those lines, at least from the people sending me information, I assume. Now, there's a lot of talk about a possible 10-day blackout. And in this, actually, I might, this one ends now. I think I should start at the other one because it's a lot more specific. So that talks about Trump having a stack of cards, Trump cards, and as it were, and a royal flush. And I'm putting this, I'll put this on the screen here again for everyone. So the blackout, it's interesting because more and more, you know, what's happened out there is that some people are saying there's going to be a blackout. Some people actually like to say they know about it or thought about it. This has been talked about really practically at least for a year, as far as I can tell. And so I'm not so bowled over or impressed by that information. Whether it actually happens and whether it happens the way they say it's going to happen is a whole different ballgame. So at any rate, what they tend to do now is talk about a blackout, but not talk about the fact that it had a purpose behind it, and the purpose was supposed to be putting on, I guess, on television and making public indictments and various things that the Trump administration had wanted to release to the public and wanted to do under certain circumstances. Now, what are your thoughts about that? And then we'll get into this post two of
there was one particular, I'm not going to say it was, there was one particular well-known guy within the alternative news industry, within the UFO, who sort of put his name on the line and not just said there would be 10 days of blackout, but actually said when the dates would come through. And I actually, just went on and did my normal update and said that's not going to happen because the people who would make it happen are telling me that it's not going to happen, and it didn't happen. The United States military can go into everybody's cell phone. If they need to, they can take charge of that cell phone and start to give live information on that individual's cell phone. They can go into every radio station and every television and just take it off air and put bulletins on. And then if we were to have a Nuremberg style quasi-military civilian court, then that would have its own special channel. So what I would say is that I don't like the word blackouts, because that's fear mongering. What there is slated in to be is a direct takeover of the civilian infrastructure if established media pretend that what's happening isn't happening. If the established media fight against the Republic and the Constitution, then they will be taken off air. But it doesn't mean that we will lose our emails or our messages. That should remain, because the war is not with the citizens of the United States. The war is with those individuals who want to bring down the United States.
Okay, and thank you for that. And also, there are some people who think or are bandying about the idea that this would be worldwide, which I think is very extreme and extremely unlikely. So I'm not sure why they're doing that, but do you want to address that at all?
Well, it's great to grab news headlines, isn't it? I mean, there are an awful lot of people who don't have any intel, see the situation and want to go in there and get some airtime, and they want to get their name about, even though they don't have anything to put forward. So I guess that's fear mongering. The bit that I would agree with is there are some countries in the Western world that have facilities which are supportive of the deep state, and in any operation to dismantle that, you might find that a city or a town that is adjacent to that might have interruption, but the whole country, say Germany, wouldn't be taken off, or France wouldn't be taken off. But if there was a facility in Berlin, then you might find Berlin was off for 5 or 6 hours. So that is likely, but not a planet-wide blackout.
All right, fair enough. So you can see the document that I've got on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was just post 2, and it goes on. So we've covered a bit of this at the beginning, so we don't need to. And this does say he can be a witness, and he's done his job. Durham is a special counsel. He's letting civil, criminal, federal courts fail to handle the situation, so that he can do the military tribunals. That's an interesting way of wording it. So this has actually been a sort of a bone of contention, I think, with a lot of people out there, wondering, that the legal system is being depended on to expose the fraud and everything else, and yet the legal system itself is completely riddled with with fraudsters and judges that are deep state and all of that. So you want to address that at all?
Yeah, the situation that's been allowed to develop has encouraged bad actors to come out of hiding. And President Trump has absolutely no intention of doing another 4 years of the same. That's not on the cards at all. And so it's much easier, rather than have to investigate people, it's much better if they advertise which side of the railroad lines they are. And so what's happening in these courts or in these governors' offices is they are declaring which side they're on, and it's making it very easy. It's showing those who need to see where the trouble is, just how corrupt the system is, and also from a point of view, if you are going to go down to martial law, you have from a true perspective to show that you have exhausted the civilian and the constitutional rules and regulations. So when courts unfairly dismiss cases, because they've been bribed or they've been blackmailed or threatened. It also allows, for treason. So where a governor has signed off the election in his or her state, knowing that it was completely fake, that person should expect to find themselves in a tribunal charged with treason.
Absolutely. Okay, so, and we would all welcome that, I believe. So then we're talking about, the Kraken supercomputer. They're calling it Alice supercomputer, and the data they've got from the NSA. Then the dueling elections. He's saying that Pence would be the final arbiter of which ballots to accept, and going into the Insurrection Act again. And this gets into Sidney Powell and her case. So Sidney did a video very recently, like a day ago, and I actually, below these posts, I did post some very good updates and videos. One of them is Sidney Powell's recent one, explaining how important her case is and some of the evidence behind it. Anything to say about her case? Because it would seem that her case should overturn everything else. I mean, from my point of view, it seems like the case. And I'm just curious what you think is going to transpire there, because, or is it even going to be decided between now and say the 6th of January? Will it come in soon enough?
One of the key things here is, of course, Q, the Q movement. Q stands for quantum, and there are 3 countries in the world that have back-engineered or gifted technologies, and a super aluminum computer or a quantum computer. Alice is as you would imagine, Alice going down the rabbit hole, is a quantum computer. And these computers don't think like a chess game. They don't say, okay, well, if I do this, what are my opponent's options? So my opponent might do this or this. What could I do to that? That's a normal supercomputer, in the sense that it would do it quicker. What I'm talking about with the Alice is that the supercomputer is the wrong term for that. It's a quantum super light speed computer. And what that does is it says, this is what the other side will do. Not, these are the options of the other side. This is what they will do. And then you can ask the machine, because it is a machine, although it is semi-aware, it's got a sort of a life to itself, and then you can say, okay, well, if we do this, what will the opponent do? And again, it will tell you this is exactly what they will do. Now, this can see absolutely accurately 6 months ahead, and then we've got a 2 year to 2.5 year after that where it's about 50% right. But human beings are so unpredictable that what will happen is that the machine, its ability to see beyond that falls off. So there are 3 countries in the world that have a quantum computer, but the Americans have the most advanced or the most capable machine, and it's not run by the NSA, which I think is very interesting, although the NSA have a connection to it. So before we talk about the other bits, these machines are the ones that are plotting the actions, and that is why the Q movement, have been able to say things 2, 3, or 4 years ago, which are now coming to fruition, or at least aspects of it are now being proven. And if we don't accept that there is a gypsy with a crystal ball, somehow divining the future, not impossible, but if we assume that it's a back-engineered piece of tech that is capable of doing that, then the bad guys were always in a trap. From the very moment that President Trump came down that escalator, the bad guys were already in a trap. So I wanted just to say that about the computers. There's 2 other computers that are not mentioned in this, but are mentioned in the original briefing document. additional to the Kraken team using their own one. But the point is that there are so many options within the Constitution, within executive orders, that we shouldn't just see one aspect roll out. There may be 4 or 5 of these options all actioned at the same time, Kerry.
Sure, but still, I do have a focus on Sidney Powell and her case.
So, I beg your pardon. I completely forgot. Yes. Well, she's only one of 2 who are allowed and qualified to lead in courts martials, and that is why she was. Do you remember that nonsense where, she was appeared to be removed from the Trump team?
Yes.
That was simply because she's a military lawyer, and she is going to be working on the military aspect of it. That's why she was removed from that, simply because the information coming through from the hack into Dominion was of such good quality that she would be able to bring charges of treason against a large number of people. So her case, the interesting thing won't be the case that she brings. It will be the separate cases she brings afterwards outside of that legal jurisdiction. That civilian court case will give her the green light to then go for what she wants to go. So she's going to get the approval of the civilian so that she can then go down the military route. That's what it's all about.
Okay. All right. Very good. And good to know. So just back to this document here. And not to worry, we are moving along kind of quickly. So okay. This won't last forever. So we then there's sort of a laundry list of things that do, as you say, factor in, and it involves sworn affidavits and so on and so forth. Rudy Giuliani, maybe this is a good place to mention him, his role, and what is up with that at the moment. Any ideas on that?
One of the things that, of course, has been wanted is a not a fall guy, but somebody to take the attention of the bad actors. So Rudy's main job was to galvanize the legislature, to offer video evidence to the public. In other words, to counter the mainstream. And he was the guy chosen to do that because he's quite tough and wasn't bothered about death threats. So his main role, actually, really and truly, was to be the face of the Trump team, and his job was to get information out there. But his role is not as important as Sidney.
Sure. Understandably. Well, all right. I think he's a complex character, and he came from those that remember 9/11. His role with regard to 9/11 was a very checkered role, if you want to say that, generously speaking. And I think that placed him in a kind of a sort of a role of being somewhat distrusted, at least as far as the Trump team might view it. And then he did seem to turn around and become a loyal supporter of Trump for quite a while. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen now and where things are going to go. He really did work incredibly hard. I did watch him, for example, in Pennsylvania, going hour after hour with these witnesses and so on. So, I don't want to undercut that. I'm just wondering, this gets into also the head of cybersecurity, who was then found to be speaking up against Trump at such a late moment, it was actually shocking. And one has to assume that the Trump team was aware that this head of cybersecurity was not on team with them. So they must have been laying some kind of a trap, and they must have actually been using him for a reason. So along these lines, I'm saying, we have Barr, we can see his role, right? And then he's now outside, he's going to move outside the Trump gate, so to speak. And then Giuliani moving outside and, also being hit by COVID right in there. That was kind of an interesting interlude. And then the head of cybersecurity. And apparently there's some other members of the cybersecurity team now that are coming forward and being losing their jobs, or whatever you want to call it, put on leave. Anything to say about all that?
Yes. Had the cybersecurity been working as it should have done, then Dominion would never have gone down that road. The only reason that Dominion went down that road was because they knew that the head of cybersecurity was not going to interdict them or cause them any problems. And of course, the Trump team knew about it. They left that man in place deliberately because they wanted Dominion to do this. They wanted that evidence. So that was all part of this plan that was laid years ago. In terms of Rudy Giuliani, let's not judge people as they were. Let's judge them as they are now. I can assure you that Trump would not have put him into the position that he did unless he knew that he was offering the mayor an opportunity to show which side of the fence he was on. In terms of William Barr did exactly what he was employed to do. There is the most complicated game which has outthought the bad actors. It is so, because it's this quantum computer, it is beyond the thinking of ordinary humans. Ordinary humans cannot compete with quantum speed of light thought. And so these traps and tricks and apparent mistakes or apparent failures are all part to draw the bad side out.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. And yeah, I think that that's becoming more and more evident, actually, as time goes on, even to people that maybe were completely in the dark about the techniques and didn't follow cue and the hints and so and so. All right. So interesting. WikiLeaks has just dropped a huge amount of documents involving Hillary, etc. That timing seems very fortuitous. Assange has to be pardoned so he can talk about Seth Rich, and God knows what else he actually knows. Any idea on the timing on this? When we know the documents supposedly have come out, although I think there's been almost nothing in the press about it, or at least the mainstream press. So any thoughts on when Assange might be pardoned?
I haven't seen a date on any document, and no one has given me that any date. But what I can tell you is that Snowden is also up for a pardon. Excellent. Okay. And a couple of other names which are embargoed, 2 other names also up for a pardon. If we look at January as the make or break time for the Constitution, then we should expect that these people will be in a position to testify for that. So, Christmas Day is a very good time to give a pardon. Christmas Eve, something like that would be very good. All right. Okay, very good. Let's see. So the governors and the Secretary of State certified the election, that have certified the election. And obviously, Biden accepting it and knowing that they're agreeing to treason. It's an interesting sort of roundabout way of treason, in a way. Now, of course, you have to prove that Biden
knew about the Dominion machines. By the way, I guess you heard about the fire recently, where a lot of the machines were lost. That appears to have been set and purposely done. But I assume that we have, Sydney was said to have some Dominion machines and so on and so forth. So any thoughts about that? In other words, Biden's. Now, I think Biden is a clone, all right, but for people that actually think he's a regular human, any thoughts about how he can be implicated in terms of the treason and the machines and knowledge of? Is there a through line?
Yes, because the National Security Agency have got phone calls between him and other parties. The National Security Agency have got emails, intercepts from face-to-face meetings. Trump has got bank account statements. And before anybody says it's illegal to obtain that information and it is illegal to use that in a court, it's not if you can show that the people who you are prosecuting were attempting to remove a regular United States president who was legally elected, and you can also show that those bad actors were attempting to bring down the republic. Therefore, you are allowed to intercept in this manner. And also, the rules are much more relaxed in a quasi-military court. And so I can assure you that President Trump has personally seen information which bad actors cannot get out of.
Right. Let me see if how much more here. Okay, so there's a number of other points, and people can go down and read these things, and perhaps they're self-explanatory up to a certain point. Now, and I think a lot of this is also known, it's out there. In other words, these are things we've already talked about, but you've talked about, and also I've seen bits and pieces of them around, kicking around out there. So this is an interesting idea, but I don't know how you're viewing all of this, but the London lockdowns, which are increasingly restrictive, and they're based on this idea that, the mutation of the so-called CV. I'm not going to name it. So the thing is that they're knowing how the black magicians work and how for lack of a better word, the Illuminati they're in a position now to want to be, to take a move that's going to throw this thing off course. What I'm saying. So I realized that, I started this out with a quote from Q saying, this is going to happen. Nothing can stop it. I wonder if nothing can stop it. I wonder if we are looking at any unexpected anything. And of course, you're talking about the quantum computer and them dealing with that. I know that all the patriots out there and the people that are going to watch this are going to want to believe that all of this can absolutely happen as it's being laid out. Because this is something we have been sort of behind from day one and wanting to see roll out. And yet it almost seems like every time we get close to the finish line, or whatever you want to call it, the rug kind of gets pulled out from under your feet and something else happens, at least ostensibly in the public eye. And in a certain sense, this is all being tried in the court of public opinion, as much as it appears to want to go down the military road, right? We all in these courts, the military courts and so on. And there's also the idea that the military itself is fragmented. So when we say military courts and we hope for the best with regard to the military courts, is that simply optimistic, or is it, for real? So any thoughts about things that might be coming down the pike that you're even aware of right now, between now and, let's see, when any of these steps are taken such that that this is rolled out?
From British point of view, it's reasonably likely that London will be sealed off by police and troops around what we call the M25, which is a freeway that circles around London. It is highly likely that is a strong possibility to completely isolate London's 8 million people by blocking off every road access from the motorway. So that's highly possible. The military in the United States do not want Biden as their commander-in-chief. They are not fragmented, not on this subject, because they know that if Biden and his gang came in, then all of the top generals and admirals and Air Force would be forcibly retired. There would be a massive shakeup, and they would be losing Taiwan. They would be losing space, airspace. They're not going to have it. So on this particular topic, the military is fairly agreed, but certain branches or certain departments of the military are not happy in what they see as challenging the Constitution, where other aspects of the military are quite happy because they believe they are protecting the Constitution. So what you will find is that certain military units will remain in their barracks because that chain of command doesn't want to go either one way or the other, and other units who are clear in what they're going to do will operate. So it is a done deal. The military has already agreed up to certain actions which they will take, which cities, which underground bases, which states. And remember that we shouldn't necessarily look at a martial law across the United States. And the briefing document was talking about martial law in only the 7 states, the swing states. And that is one of the reasons that Arizona has been receiving a great deal of military reserves coming through it. Only yesterday, retired Marines, Marine Reserve are being called up. So, don't think of, all of America. I think California definitely is going to have a knock on the door, and I think New York will have a knock on the door. But there will be some states that don't see anything. It's just a normal day for them.
Okay, good to hear, because I think that would make sense as well. All right, so do you agree that Trump will make his big speech on Christmas or on the 24th?
That speech hasn't been written because the other side haven't done what they need to do to bring the action forward. But it could be on the 24th, which looks like a public holiday for the US. It could be on Christmas Day. Both have been slated and kept blank for that. But it isn't a simple case of doing that because it wouldn't get the coverage on mainstream media. So if he's going to do something like that, he has to make sure he's got control of the airwaves. So we're not there yet with that.
Oh, all right. That's very interesting. Right. Oh, okay. Now I'm not going to keep you much longer. I certainly want to give.
All right. It's the same time that you've got.
I know that, but I'm in a certain sense, you're on my show, you're my guest, so I want to sort of
whatever you want to do, it's whatever you want to do. At the moment, this is the work that Becky and I are doing, and We got a day off actually on Thanksgiving because
Oh,
90% of our work it dried up because the US was on holiday. So, this is what, this is what it's about, isn't it? It's important.
it is. It is. And really very happy that you're here to help with this. So at the moment, I mean, this is Saturday night. Okay, I think I have that right.
You do.
And tomorrow's Sunday, and really, Christmas. The Thursday. I mean, we are so close, right, to the 24th and Christmas. And of course, they've been making these changes immediately. And you're saying they're going to possibly put military vehicles on the M25, and we have a good English support here for Project Camelot as well for our audience. So I'm sure that they're going to be watching this. That's very interesting. And just as a side note, of course, I'm American. I want to be able to get out of Dodge if I need to, so to speak, this American slang, and leave town. I believe I still can. I looked it up, and they're not going to prevent people from flying out, it looks like, from London. But I just want to make sure that's the case. If you have any news, please do inform me.
No, I can't, that side of it, I can't. What I can say to you is that the physical lockdown around the M25 is very dependent on what the 8 million people in London do in relation to this tier 4. So basically, and it's not impossible, there is a big pushback about being pushed into 4 because it came from nowhere. There was no real warning, and it could lead to some quite serious physical confrontation. That is the trigger to seal off the M25. It is believed that that this thing is mutated and is mutated into something that those in control don't want outside of London. Of course, that's a nonsense because it's already outside of London. But the point is that that's the argument being used.
Yes.
But for that to happen, certain other things have to happen. So I'm not saying this is going to happen. What I'm saying is that it is it's one of the options that they have if they wish to control 8 million people. In terms of you flying out, the last time they blocked that was it back in March, when I know some of the contacts that I was meeting in London had to get the hell out, and they couldn't get military flights, and they were waiting 6-7 hours on the phone for British Airways, and then they did get their flights out. But that was the only time, to my knowledge, American nationals, there was a cutoff date, and if you were an American citizen and you missed it, you were stuck here. But I don't think they've done it this time, so I think you would be okay. The question is, literally, the great thing about Heathrow Airport is I think it's within the M25.
Yes, and also for us from London.
Yeah.
Well, okay, thank you for that. Just a couple words for Boris Johnson's role, because there are certain people out there saying that Boris was under Trump's control, and yet what appears to me is that that's not the case. So any thoughts on that, and why someone would think that, and was he for a short time, and then was he brought back to the other side, because he certainly seems to be.
Kerry, the sound is breaking up. Can you just paraphrase that? I couldn't hear you very well.
Oh, Boris Johnson's role, and he seems to be playing once again for the opposition, so to speak.
This is a vacuum we're in. Once the President of the United States is back in, once the action is taken against the bad actors, There are a certain number of people who are inherently good, who will have the confidence to be seen to be good. There are a number of bad actors, Germany, France, who will be pushed back into their box. Boris is a good person who has allowed himself to be influenced by bad actors.
Okay, that makes sense, I have to say. All right, I think I'm out of questions at this exact moment. Do you have anything you would like to say that we haven't touched on, or any parting words, perhaps?
Not really on anything we need to say. This is going to change dramatically. You know, there was a time last week when, you know, so many yellow darling, where so many people were going from one video state legislature to the next, looking for something to give them support, and that's how desperate it was. Patriots were going for anything, and I do appreciate and I understand. I've run a spiritual organization, and I know how people feeling, but I can tell you that President Trump did not do 4 years in the White House, did not allow himself to be talked into standing and running for president just to let the other side get down on this. So it ain't going to happen. What we don't know, I beg your pardon, I don't know exactly how the other side is going to respond. What you will have noticed is that hardly anything is coming out of the Biden team, hardly anything. And there are people around Biden who are beginning to see the truth. I don't mean the truth, I mean the way things are going to unfold, and they will be wanting to jump ship very quickly. In relation to a question that you posed and we didn't cover, I didn't cover, I think Biden knew about Dominion in the swing states. I don't think he had the full knowledge outside, simply because somebody like him you can't rely on to keep that information quiet. In other words, you wouldn't be giving a thing like Biden that level of information, which unintentionally would be given out. But Biden already knew about the swing states. So he is treasonous just on the fact that he knew that on 5, 6, 7 states, he knew that that was being altered. So it doesn't matter that he didn't know the whole caboodle. He knew about that. So Biden actually doesn't have a great deal of knowledge on many of these things. He is purely a face, a puppet, and actually so is Harris. She is just a younger version of Hillary, who they thought would be just as easily manipulable. With Biden, for him, just being president for 3 months would have been everything he would have lived for, and he was happy just to have that. For Harris, who's power mad, she would go for it because she would have power, but she wouldn't, because it's those behind her. And so people need to understand this is not about Democrats and Republicans. This is about good versus evil. And, you know, if you're an average, ordinary Democrat voter, you should ask yourself, what's more important to you, the donkey or the fathers when they created the republic? So there'll always be a percentage of Democrat voters who so hate Trump and what he stands for that they don't care that there was corruption. They don't care. They're quite happy for that, to get rid of Trump. That's not American. The vast majority of people must put the United States first. This is about Satan, Lucifer, whatever you want to call it. It's evil versus good. And that is what's being fought out. And it's just a mirror image of what is occurring to humanity, because this is a fantastic opportunity of choice. People are choosing not so much what they believe, but what they want themselves. So depending on what an individual chooses, he or she is setting their own development for the rest of their life. So this is part of the change occurring on the earth. And it's a very exciting time. And, you know, all of us are privileged to be here at this time to witness it.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to realize that it's a choice that to be here, so that they, you know, that we all came for this actually. So it is, these times are trying, but there's also various ways of handling these things. And there are some silver linings, I would say, which are interesting and come out whenever humans are forced to deal with things like loss and restriction and so on. And I myself have had some wonderful conversations here in England already with people like, you know, cab drivers and various people that are you know, holding the line, so to speak. And it is a worldwide thing. That's something that's also very evident. So and I think it is separating kind of in a certain way the wheat from the chaff, as they say here, and so that's.
I mean, the personal thing for me, because if Biden were to become the president, I won't be going to America.
Sure.
I won't be going. I won't be invited.
That's obvious.
I just want to give the audience a bit more confidence that the people who I connect with have already received their official invites for Trump's inauguration and the gala. That's how confident they are. They've actually all got their official gala tickets and the inauguration tickets. Now, I'm not invited to that. I'm not an American citizen. I'm not invited to that. But the people that are connecting with me have already got that. That's how confident they are that the Republic will be strong. And then once the president is in, then I will be pushing, you know, to get out as fast as possible. But it depends on the lockdowns and what happens here. The worst comes to the worst, I shall actually ask for a military flight, because I am not going to take this in the arm, because some carriers might say you have to have this before we take you, and I'm not. It's a personal point. I'm not having that. Right.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Simon. It's been delightful, and I really appreciate your patience with going through everything, because I know you did your own sort of talks on these.
Oh, it's fine. Look, we've always got on. I've always respected you. You're uncorruptible, and the information that you carry is good. And so, if you know, it's important for good people to coordinate and work together. God knows the bad people have been doing this for a very long time. It's the way they work. Good people tend to be isolated, and I think that it's now time for good people to say, look, there is enough space to share our information individually and as a group. It's not competition, because what we want is the information out to the public. Let the public choose what they want to believe, but let's give them that opportunity to learn.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, and I think that's happening a lot, and more actually I'm seeing around me, although there are still some holdouts in our sector. But nonetheless, that this will all play itself out, and maybe as soon as during the next 2 weeks. So we'll see where it all goes. Thank you again for being here, and thank you everyone for watching. I wish everyone a happy holiday. I will try to stay in touch with everyone. I'm going to edit this together because we had sort of different starts here, and get it sort of cleaned up and get it online as quickly as I can. And I also want to say that for those of you that are interested, I was banned yesterday from Facebook for the very post on this subject. As far as I know, it was my last post, and then they banned me for 6 days. Not forever, but for 6 days. So my audience kind of goes crazy when they don't hear anything from me. You will hear from me, but not through Facebook. So I suggest you go onto Twitter. Hopefully I can hang on there. And I will also try to do some more, I'm going to do some more interviews in the next couple of days, as long as nothing absolutely crazy happens and I don't have to leave town suddenly or something crazy. But things are looking good. And actually, it's not snowing here yet. I would welcome snow in London anyway. I think it would be quite fun and beautiful. But I'm quite close to the river. We had a lovely sunny day here, and the news did not report that, so, for what it's worth. All right. Take care, everyone, and good night.
God bless. Bye-bye.